Sounds like there's more than one team, obviously, that are interested in Devin Williams. The Brewers shopping him around, according to reports. And there's also one report out there that the Brewers aren't trading Devin. We'll get to all that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yeah, there's so many teams linked right now, but how many are really interested, and will there be like a dark horse in all that? I have one team I think that's the front runner here. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, including a report that Devin isn't going anywhere. We'll get to all that coming up. My name is Chuck Freeman, longtime sportscaster here in the state of Wisconsin, proud host of Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good to have you along here as we wind up the work week and talk a little Devin Williams here on the show. Not Devin Harris, the Toasty East great, but Devin Williams, the 30-year-old closer of the Milwaukee Brewers. So we'll get to that. Brandon Woodruff, where does he factor in the rotation next year? And a week from today, we will be talking about the non-tender guys. I like to call it Brandon Woodruff Day because that was the day last year where we got the bombshell dropped on us that Brandon Woodruff would be non-tendered. Little do we know, a year later, he's going to be competing for a spot in that rotation if he's healthy. We'll get to all that coming up next. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season, the big return on FanDuel. New customers place a $5 bet. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bet. But you got to win that $5 bet, and you're going to get $150 added to your account. Visit FanDuel to get started today. All right, let's get started here. Devin Williams, according to CBSSports.com, the Phillies are really, really interested in Devin Williams. The Phillies were as good a team as the Phillies were last year. They had problems closing out games. They were the sixth worst team in baseball in saves. Hard to believe a team with that many wins had that lousy of a bullpen. So obviously, Devin Williams. Now, the problem here is the Brewers are competing with Philadelphia for the right to go to the World Series, right? I mean, they're in the same league, but the Phillies finished a couple of games ahead of the Brewers, and it's kind of like the Brewers are in the same division with the Phillies, wouldn't you think? Because you get a better record than the Phillies, you get a home field advantage, and you don't have to worry about playing that stupid wild card round, which has been the nemesis of the Brewers. But like I've said before, I don't have any problem trading guys to the Phillies or the Cubs, because when you make a deal, you like to think you're going to get the better end of the deal. And if there's guys in the Phillies who could help you out, well, then that's not so bad. Yeah, I don't have this idea of, you're trading Devin to the Phillies and he's going to get revenge on the Brewers. How did that work out with Rowdy Tellez signing with the Pirates last year? He was supposed to get, had that a burst of energy, that little extra in his step when he faced the Brewers. I mean, did you even notice that Rowdy was on the team? Then he was released at the end of the year. But Devin Williams is not Rowdy Tellez. He's an all-star. But still, I never believed in that. Well, he's going to have that extra motivation. You can't trade it to a guy in your division. I don't care if you trade him to the Cubs, whoever. Just as long as you get what you want. If you can get what you want, I mean, it takes two to make a trade. So if you make a trade, the Phillies, and you get somebody you want. Now, I think, for me, you can't make a trade with the Phillies without Alec Bohm coming in return to the Brewers. And I know he had a down year last year. He is an all-star. He had a great first half and slumped off in the second, had a little bit of an injury, went on the injured list there. But, he's got, he's going to be 30 by the time when he has free agency, he'll be 30. He's 28 right now. But 143 games, batted .277, 15 home runs, injured. The Brewers would have 2 years control of him. He wouldn't be a free agent until after the 2026 season. So you'd have 2025 and 2026. If you're going to deal Devin Williams, Alec Bohm, you're going to deal him to the Phillies. I've talked, and I do think the Brewers have to get themselves a stud third baseman, a guy who can light it up for you. And I think Alec, who's, again, fallen out of favor, Bowen has fallen out of favor with the Phillies and some fans there. But they need a closer. but it wouldn't be, it's not obviously not one for one. I got to get a little bit more in return on that. Okay. And then if I have to give up a prospect with Williams, okay, but I want some more in return. We're not talking straight up Devin Williams for Alec Bohm. Not at all. But the Phillies are looking like they're going to try to run it back with their same cast of guys. You know who they all are. The Castellanos and those kind of guys, Bryce Harper. They just want to fortify their bullpen a little bit more. But maybe you're hearing rumblings out of the city of brotherly love that maybe Alec Bohm would be maybe in that trade conversation. And if the Phillies are maybe the number one team, I mean, it makes sense for the Phillies if they want a closer and they want to pick up their game a little bit out of the bullpen, which stunk last year. Well, why not go for the best closer in baseball? Why not? So we'll see. But I'm telling you, if you make a deal with the Phillies, I got to have their power hitting third baseman, Alec Bohm, and a few other guys in return. Okay. I mean, Devin Williams would fit in nicely in that bullpen, obviously, and a third baseman. Now, I would be banking, and I always hate thinking about this with the Brewers because I feel like we're always banking on guys coming here and bouncing back, like we did Rhys Hoskins. So we'd have Rhys Hoskins from the Phillies and Alec Bohm playing third base. But again, 28 years old, you'd have 2 years of under control with him. You would just have 2 years under control, and you're losing Devin to free agency anyway. Now, there's also a report, Bob Nightingale, USA Today, says the Brewers will not trade, are listening to offers, but will not trade Devin Williams until the All-Star break if they're out of the race. Well, that's dumb. That would be just plain stupid if the Brewers went down that road. Because here you have a big bargaining chip with Devin Williams. Of course, I don't want to trade Williams. I mean, for talent-wise, of course not. But the Brewers' MO, obviously, as you all know, is that they don't want to keep guys who've been under control for a few years, and especially who are closers. And there's a number of examples. But trading him at the deadline. Now, what if the Brewers aren't? Now, according to Nightingale, they would trade him at the All-Star break if they're not in the race. Well, I'm banking on the Brewers to be in the race, okay? If the Brewers are not in the race at the All-Star break, there's problems. What's going on? I mean, there's no reason in this lousy division the Brewers shouldn't be in the pennant race. They better not be going from 93 wins to 73. We don't want one of those. I think there's going to be a little regression there. I don't see 93 wins. I mean, so many things went right for the Brewers last year. And 93, I mean, nobody saw that. I do expect a little regression from the Brewers, especially if they're trying to run it back with the same class. But who knows, depending if they do make a couple of moves, you never know. You never know how baseball is going to work out. But I like Bob Nightingale, and I respect him, and I like a lot of the things he has. But again, he writes, the Brewers will not be trading Williams unless they are not in the pennant race come the All-Star break. Well, the feeling is at the All-Star break, you could always get more for your talent at the All-Star break because you have teams you have those looking for your player. You have them because they want your player, so you can. And by the way, the opponents also know that you're trying to trade Devin Williams. So if you don't trade him by the All-Star break or you trade him by the trading deadline at the end of July, then you're not going to get anything for him if you're a losing team. So teams also know if the Brewers aren't in the pennant race, well, yeah, they're going to try to deal Devin Williams. I don't feel like those returns aren't as much as they used to be. I mean, teams used to give away the house at the All-Star break for the David Cohns and the Ricky Hendersons back in the day. I don't feel like teams quite do that anymore, give away all their prospects. But no, if we're holding a fire sale at the All-Star break and in July, I'm gonna be one angry person, and so should all you Brewer fans, because that means we would have taken a step backward. And that's baseball, but still, we don't need to take a step backward. We got a young team. We got a good team. No reason why the Brewers should not be the preseason favorite this year to win the National League Central, even with the roster they have right now, even losing Devin Williams. But you got to get something in return. I think that's how much better the Brewers are than everybody else in the division. But no, if you're going to trade him in the offseason. Don't be holding on to him, and then you're at the All-Star break, and you're in the race. Okay, and then you keep him for the entire season, and then you lose him to free agency. The Brewers need help at a few other positions. Now, if the Brewers' bullpen wasn't as strong as it is, then I'd say, okay, keep Devin Williams. But the bullpen, to me, I see the bullpen as a major strength in this team for many different reasons. Plus, they got a closer who's going to throw 100. And I think Uribe is going to help them out next year. And I think you're going to get the Mizorowski added to this roster. So you got 3 guys throwing 100 there, possibly. But Devin Williams, trade him in the offseason. Don't be doing something stupid and holding on to him. Need a third baseman. All right. I'm going to throw a few names out there. The non-tender deadline is coming up. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good to have you along here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook for a reason. Get ready to tackle all the NFL action this weekend. Maybe you like those live plays. I love those live plays. Give me those live plays, man. I'm really good on those. I love those. I get a hunch in the middle of the game. You go to FanDuel, you check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Well, again, some of those best live plays to play. I like playing the Chiefs when they're down. And that seems to have been working out for me. You know, the Chiefs have this knack of getting down in the first half of a game. And then, well, you know, Mahomes, that's the way he is. He rallies his team. And before you know it, Butker's kicking the game-winning field goal. Seems that always works out for the Chiefs, although they didn't work out last year when the Chiefs were at Lambeau Field. But since then, I feel like the Chiefs win every close game. But when you get that hunch, visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets when you win that first $5 bet. So you place your $5 bet, you win it, they'll dump $150 into your account at FanDuel. But visit FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. And you get the same thing with basketball as well. You get that live, you get those live results in, and you go live on that, go live in college football. But my favorite thing is live college football too. You see a heavy favorite getting down early. Go ahead. Basketball the other night, Oregon down 10, 5 minutes to go. FanDuel made that hunch, looked at it, saw the odds, plus 250. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This is Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Great to have you along here as we wind up the week. Hey, our podcast, if you're just joining us for the first time, you're searching around the internet, you find our podcast. Hey, great to have you along. Longtime sportscaster here in Wisconsin. The Brewers are my favorite team. And I love me talking some hot stove league. You get our podcast on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast on the internet. We are there wherever you go, whatever provider you go. We're the #1 Brewers podcast because of you Brewers fans out there. And if you download just the audio version, the video version as well. Our video view right here in our studio. If you're watching us on YouTube, I got, you look behind me in the studio. I got the history of Brewers baseball, and some of it you can't see, but the history of Brewers baseball, including my dad there, who was in the war many years ago. And I didn't say, by the way, earlier in the week on Veterans Day, and I was remiss, I put it on Facebook and Twitter, but I didn't put it on the show. Thank you for all you great veterans out there. Great veterans like my dad, and there's a lot of you real great Americans out there, men and women who make our country great and give us what we need to live our everyday lives. It's because you guys sacrificed. I see you guys. Thank you, all you veterans. And I love seeing the veterans wearing their caps around town at ball games and always take time to say hello to a veteran. Man, they gave so much of their lives. So I did not say anything Monday. I can't believe I did not say anything, but yes, happy Veterans Day, belated Veterans Day to all you great ones out there. All right, so the non-tender is coming out a week from today. And next Friday night, we'll have a podcast like we did last Friday night. because that deadline is at 7 o'clock. That deadline is at 7 o'clock, and that's what we found out with Brandon Woodruff. It was a sad night. I was doing the show, the podcast, down at a hotel in Milwaukee, or in Chicago, and Shannon wanted to go out to eat. She was down there for a nurses conference, wanted to go on. I said, can't go until we do this podcast. Let's see what's going on here with Brandon Woodruff. And then they didn't tender him. But then, of course, they later signed him to a 2-year deal, and all is good. And Brandon Woodruff is secure and competing for a spot in rotation. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. The number one person I see on this non-tender list who I think the Brewers are not going to tender is Hoby Milner. He didn't have a very good year this year. The Brewers already have options with lefties, with Koenig and Hudson out of the bullpen. Coming off a bad year again, Milner. The option would be $2.7 million. Now, the Brewers have already said goodbye to a couple of guys who they would have had to make decisions on non-tender day. Bowers and Bryce Wilson. Jake Bowers, both of these guys, they just outrighted them. So they're free agents. 2 surprises. We've talked about them on previous podcasts, but Bowers and Wilson are not on this list. But Hoby Milner, to me, tops the list of guys who have been around this team, name guys who I think the Brewers are not going to tender. So I think Hoby Milner, that won't hurt. I mean, I liked Hoby when he was here, did a nice job. Last year was a little sketchy, but losing Hoby Milner would not be like losing Brandon Woodruff. A couple of other guys, I think they'll bring Payamps back. I think Payamps is for sure coming back. Haas, I don't think. Some people, you guys think that Haas is coming back to be the backup catcher. I don't know. I think they're going to get a better option. And when I say that, because of defensively, he struggles throwing out guys on base paths as that backup catcher. You better be good defensively. You can't have guys running all day. I like Haas. I like his bat. I like Eric's bat, but no, defensively, I don't think so. Mears, Brewers love him. They put him on the postseason roster. Mears is for sure coming back. Will get tendered. And, McGill, that's a no-brainer. They'll for sure tender him. So that's the non-tender. That's for all the unsigned players who are also arbitration eligible players as well. And that'll be next Friday at 7 o'clock. And then after that comes out, we'll have a show talking about that night, talking about the players who are coming back and who are leaving. Oh, Savali, another one. I think the Brewers will tender him. And why wouldn't you? An $8 million starting pitcher. I still would like to keep Savali. I know there's some circles out there that think the Brewers are going to trade Aaron Savali. I like him. You traded for him. You got him. I think he'd be a nice option coming out into that starting rotation. But that rotation right now, I have it lined up as Peralta, Freddie at the top, Myers, Ashby, Woodruff. I think the Brewers will add somebody either through trade, maybe a Devin Williams trade, or maybe even a free agent signing. And I'm not saying they're going to go out and sign Corbin Burns, but I think they'll make a free agent signing or a trade to fit into that right rotation. Possibly DL Hall fitting in. But I think they have plans for Ashby and Hall if they're healthy during camp. I think they have great shots at it. But Peralta, Myers, Ashby, Woodruff, provided he's healthy. Although like I always say, I never count on guys coming off the injured list, and DL Hall. But I think the Brewers there'll be a name there that we're not talking about. The Brewers used 17 different starters last year. 17 different starters. But if Woodruff is on this team and Woody gets back to the Woodruff that we know, guy who's just a legit, to me, I've always looked at Brandon Woodruff as a legit, bona fide number one starter. And that's why I was so excited 2 seasons ago when he had Corbin Burns and Woodruff at the top of that rotation. He had 2 bona fide number one starters, which you normally don't get in a small market. And obviously, if Woodruff wouldn't have been hurt, the guy would be making Corbin Burns money right now. But he's back for the final year of his contract. He was paid last year. And if he has a big year, we're going to lose Woodruff again. And this time it won't be because of non-tender. It'll be because he's going to the free agency and cashing in. But I think Woodruff, God, if he works out next year, it'd be like adding a pitcher. And I hate using that scenario because this is a term that we always use with the Milwaukee Brewers. When somebody comes off the injured, like Devin Williams. Well, we got Devin Williams. That's like making a trade. He hasn't been here for 2 months, but him coming off the injured list, that's like the Brewers making a trade. Yeah, yes and no. But in this case with Woodruff, if he's able to be the Brandon Woodruff we know he can be, and all accounts are that the rehab is going along really well, God, Woodruff and Peralta at the top of that rotation, not bad. But that all remains to be seen. Like I said, I think the Brewers are going to add another one. And by the way, that free agent signing, as I've said before, not Max Scherzer. No. The Brewers are moving back to earlier starts. Earlier starting time for the Brewers. Year-round. We'll get to that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. SelectQuote. Hey, the World Series, Super Bowl, the Olympics, the world's top athletes get to play in the top level sporting events thanks to one big thing, teamwork. And teamwork can help you get yourself affordable life insurance through the folks over at SelectQuote. Licensed insurance agents, perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy that's going to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. Hey, as we always say, tomorrow's not promised. You got to have good life insurance to protect your family, your kids, your wife, whomever, your family. I've known people who've, passed away in their 40s and 50s, didn't have life insurance. You're never too young to find life insurance. And the right life insurance for you at the right price is through SelectQuote. They're a name out there, America's leading insurance broker. Nearly 40 years of experience helping 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. So they've been around. Those licensed agents will be shopping for affordable life insurance for you. But again, do not go without life insurance. Never. That is living dangerously. Going without life insurance. Give the folks at SelectQuote. Give them a call. Get the right insurance for you. SelectQuote.com/lockedon. Go to SelectQuote.com/lockedon today to get started. SelectQuote.com/lockedon. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Down the stretch we come. I'm glad the Brewers are doing this. All games Monday through Thursday, they've announced. All games Monday through Thursday are going to be 6:40 starts. Man, that is nearly an hour earlier than what we saw, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when the Brewers would be at first pitch would be 7:30, when it would actually be 7:39 or 7:38, the starting pitch, the first pitch. It'd be like 7:38 on a weeknight. That was too late. I think when the Brewers first came to Milwaukee in the early 70s, obviously it was, not around or very, very little. I think starting times were like 8 o'clock during the week. But Monday through Thursday, 6:40 starting times. It was a thing where they did it like in April and May and in September. Now they're going to do it year round, which is great. 6:40 starting times, and why not? 6:40 time, get to the ballpark, get off of work, get to the ballpark, grab something to eat along the way. At 6:40 is plenty of time. And the way the games are sped up a little bit, you're out of there by 6:40, sometimes 9:15 or so. And that's the way it should be. Shouldn't be at the ballpark. I mean, God, 7:38 the starting times used to be. My gosh. Imagine that a couple of years ago when we were playing those 4-hour games. So I like that. Now, the one thing I wish they would change is I don't like the 3 o'clock starts on Saturday afternoons. I wish those were later starts, like at 7 o'clock, because on Saturdays, it's either going to be a 3:10 start or a 6:10 start. But I think on Saturdays, I like the little later start because, you go out and golf, you enjoy the weather outside and out, or doing whatever you need to do around the house or outside. But a 6:10 start, I feel like you're rushed. 7 o'clock, boy, you get the around a golf in or whatever, if you like the golf, mid-afternoon golf, and then you head out to the ballpark. So I wish Saturdays starts where it's 7:10, I should say. Saturdays at 7:10, and then on Monday through Thursday, keep the 6:40 starts, which I think is a great adjustment. Friday nights will still be at 7:10, and then Sunday afternoons will be at 1:10. Still a great time. It wouldn't even mind if they started a little earlier on Sundays. Noon start? Would that be too early for some people? Like the NFL? Drop me a comment. Let me know. A lot of rumors out there on who's going where. I saw Colin Ray possibly could be signing with Detroit. Mark Feinstead from MLB.com says the Brewers should re-sign Joe Ross. No room. Liked him when he was here, and I'm glad he's back on the road to recovery from his injuries, but Joe Ross will need to continue his career with somewhere else. Hey, that's going to do it for me. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen to every day here on Locked On Brewers. For your second listen, go to Locked On MLB. I was on that show earlier this week. Locked On MLB, hosted by my guy, Sully. He'll go around the league. He'll always keep you updated with all the fresh off-season moves on Locked On MLB. My name is Chuck Freeman. Again, you find us on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast. And please always hit our growing YouTube page. Subscribe to our YouTube page. It'll help support the podcast. Locked On Brewers on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. Have yourself a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you early next week, Sunday night, Monday morning with Locked On Brewers. Have a good one, everybody.